everyone, and welcome back to Reflect Forward. I'm your host, Kerry Siggins, and I'm so glad you're here today. My interview is with John Saunders, who is the founder of Forward Advisory Solutions, and he also does these big Meet the Author events. I did a Meet the Author event live on LinkedIn with him back in January, and I actually met him in Washington, D.C. with Doug Shear, who was on the podcast earlier this year, where they came and listened to me speak on Capitol Hill, and we became fast friends. And I absolutely adore John. He has so much great leadership advice. He's the author of Optimizer, which is a book on how do you optimize your leadership. And he's doing all kinds of really cool things. He's done amazing things to help people achieve their vision for themselves and their companies and do it in a way that makes them happy. So I am really looking forward to you meeting John. So hang tight and I'll be right back. Hi, everyone, and welcome back. I am here with my good friend, John Saunders, who is the founder of Forward Advisory Solutions and author of The Optimizer. John, I'm so glad you were here with me today. Thanks for joining me on the show.
It is a pleasure to be here, Kerry. Great to see you.
Awesome. All right. So tell us a little bit about what you do. What is Forward Advisory Solutions? And then how did that lead you to writing your book?
It's been I think a non-linear journey might be the best way to put it. I worked on Wall Street for 23 plus years. Started out as an assistant, found my way many years later running a $4 billion sales team. And the company got sold actually about 5 years ago, almost at the day. And from that, I talked to a lot of people trying to sort of look for different opportunities. Many people gave me great advice, but two really stood out to me. One person said, write something, put it on LinkedIn as a marketing tool. I thought, great idea. I was Kamal Bhatia. Thank you for the idea, Kamal. So I started writing these leadership papers and shared it with friends. Suddenly it was a series. And this other person said, if you want to figure out what to do next, she said, go immerse yourself in something you're passionate about and your value proposition will manifest itself. I didn't even get it at first. And as I started to kind of go to different events and talk to people, I literally landed my first client just talking to them at an event, asking them questions as I always do. And then I took my papers to a professor and he said, why don't you, I think you have a book here. And I was like, how do I write a book? I have no idea how to do that. I wanted to, but I don't know where to start. There's a little question marks, there's some question marks at the front end. And he said, I know this author coach guy. So I went and dove into this program and wrote it in 2020. And throughout writing it and marketing it, found some more speaking engagements and book talks, if you will. And it really just kind of took off from there. And now I help companies really figure out how to drive innovation and create leadership and mission-driven organizations, leadership culture and mission-driven organizations across a variety of industries. And it's been just a great deal of fun.
Now, I wouldn't think that Wall Street would be a place that you would learn great leadership skills. But I know that's not quite how it worked for you. But I think a lot of us have the Wolf of Wall Street, where it's just winner takes all, definitely a cutthroat type environment. But I know that you did something different with your team there. So maybe you could talk a little bit about your leadership journey when you were working on Wall Street and how that helped you figure out what this passion and purpose is that you're doing now.
Well, I will say that a friend of mine who joined the organization, the Wall Street firm, many years after I did, and he was sort of a completely different industry. I asked him, how did you even land here? Because he had no background in asset management. And he said, a recruiter called me and they wanted someone in data to raise our data game, if you will. And he said, it's a Midwest culture with a Wall Street address. And it's funny, I've been with the firm 15, 17 years at this point. I'd never heard it described that way, but I'm from the Midwest originally and live in the East Coast now, but couldn't agree with it more. And it was always a culture of, if you're willing to learn and grow and help drive the boat here, we'll all benefit from that. And that was very much my mindset. So I was always trying to think about how do I do things better, more efficiently, more effectively. And at some point I figured out, oh wait, there's more to it than just being efficient and effective. You have to actually connect with people and build good relationships and empower them. You get promoted because you're good at your job, right? So my first thing as a leader was thinking, well, how do I turn everybody into me? Because that's the way to do this job. And thanks to some mentorship and some reflection, I quickly figured out, oh, wait, it's not about me anymore. It's about empowering them to be their best selves. And once I made that shift, it really was a game changer and started to helping them figure out what they like to do. How can we apply that to our careers? And then really rise the tide for everybody. And it was just a really fun journey. And now I take that same approach to coaching.
You shared with me a story about a time where you gave one of your employees the presidential suite. Could you maybe share that story? Because I think it really does do a good job of showcasing your servant leadership, but also what kind of team environment you were trying to build.
Yeah, thank you. So I really always look to try to challenge my people to raise their game. And you can't give everyone the same challenge because everyone's operating at different levels. And this particular gentleman, his name is Josh, he had done a great deal of work to really grow over the course of this 1 year. And we were at the year-end conference, and I could give out an award to the top person, which came with some really nice financial benefits and perks and whatnot. And he wasn't quite going to get there. He didn't displace the top person yet. And I knew he was going to be very disappointed. And so as the conference was approaching, it was his 40th birthday. And having gotten to know him over the last number of years, I knew that he liked to write these sort of cheesy notes to his clients and do these fun gifts for people. And so I thought, what can I do for him? And so I called the event planning team. And as a manager, we always got suites at these big fancy hotels. We were in Dallas or something at like a Ritz-Carlton. And I said, can we trade rooms? And they were like, what? Why would you do that? And in fairness, I did take that from our CEO. I saw him do it once or twice. Anyway, I traded rooms with the guy. I knew he liked IPA beers. So in his room upon arrival was a basket of local IPAs. I got him a birthday cake that said happy 40th. And I wrote a note to him that said, I thought you could use some more space to work on all your big ideas. He was always working on big ideas. And I had that written on the note. I said, so please enjoy this suite. And when I arrived at the hotel, he called me and he was literally almost in tears. And he goes, no one's ever done anything this nice for me before. And at the end of that, fast forward 12 months, he was just so taken and inspired by that. He stood on that stage and won the award the next year. In fact, he won it 2 or 3 of the next 5 and became one of my top performers. It was incredible.
Yeah. It's amazing what those small, thoughtful acts can do to make people be seen. And when people are seen, they are motivated. What I'm doing is worthwhile. And I think that's what you really did for him. So I love that story. It just shows what kind of culture you were trying to create there.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And you can apply this in so many different ways. I did it for so many clients over the years. I found if you can find a way to impact somebody when they're out of their daily routine, like on vacation, for example, that can be just massively impactful.
Yep, absolutely. Another thing that you say that you love to do is that you find win-wins in any circumstance. Can you describe what that means and why you think it's so beneficial and maybe share a story of what creating a win looks like?
Yeah, it sounds so simple, right? Like, how do I approach a circumstance with this sort of win mindset? Because there were so many times on Wall Street when I would go out and present a particular product to a client, and I would get this question back, are you getting paid extra on this? Is this your initiative of the month or whatever, something like this? And my answer was 9 times out of 10, no, I think it's the right thing for you and the problems you're trying to solve. And I was amazed how often I got that question. It really made me reinforce that if I can see this as a win, that really can help benefit everybody. And so when I think about my favorite story from that, it was working with an author a couple of years ago. So I do this mission-driven thought leaders, but I also work with authors that are thought leaders in this space. I had that great pleasure to work with you a while back. This one author wrote a book about these 5 little girls of color go and save the mountain gorilla, an endangered animal. And they each had a gift from STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, math. And we thought about why she really wanted to help empower and inspire young girls of color to join careers in engineering, STEAM, and conservation. And we talked about her vision, her ideal. And that was really about, at first, California, where she's from, helping girls in that community. But as we talked more about it, I challenged her to think it's a global story. We can really change girls' lives around the planet with this story. And so then we started to think about who could win from this alignment. And we looked at a lot of options in the US and we started to look globally. And what we landed on through brainstorming was safari operators. And so we literally looked for them on Instagram through hashtags relevant to the book. And we sent this guy a DM on Instagram. Hey, I wrote this book about these girls coming there, da, da, da. At first he thought it was some kind of a scam or something, right? And we get him on Zoom, start talking to him, and he couldn't believe it. You wrote a book about American girls coming here to save our gorillas? Yeah. And then as a sales guy, as I always did, I would ask the question, who else should we be telling this story to down there? Oh, you need to talk to the safari park guys. Told them the whole mission vision thing. They loved it. Then we got involved with the tourism board. And then I said, why don't I host a live launch event for all you guys and we can do this thing online? And then we did that and had such great results that they said, you guys need to come do this here. And so I think we were down there 12 days and they took us all around the country to 4 or 5 safari parks. It was incredible. Bought a whole bunch of her books to put in the gift shops of the safari parks. And then they hosted this massive book launch for her that was incredibly well attended, particularly by the media. They got her interviews on every morning show in Uganda. It was absolutely incredible and really changed the trajectory of what she was trying to do. And by the way, my favorite part about this story is when I met her, she's a 60-year-old African-American woman. She goes, John, I'm an introvert. I've never sold anything. How do I sell books? That's where we started.
I love that. That's such a great example of a win for her and for you and for everybody in Uganda who was involved with this. So what was the impact? I mean, obviously she sold some books. What was the impact that it had for the partners you are working with in Uganda?
Yeah, they have been just so grateful and thankful about that because one of their big initiatives is try to empower because
Yeah.
Uganda is a incredibly poor country. The average
Right.
income is $800 a year. When I first saw that, I thought it maybe meant a month, a
Hmm.
year. And so there's tons of young girls out there who just don't have great education. So they don't even think about these things. So it's really helped reignite what they're trying to do around getting young girls into these bigger educations, conservation and STEAM careers. So they've been very grateful for what we did to help drive awareness around that.
I love that. So, through this story, I want to pull on the thread of the importance of a mission and vision because I think that's really important, right? One of the first questions you asked me, why'd you write this book? What was your purpose? What was your mission? What was the vision that you had for this? And it was really great because there's a lot of different reasons why people do things, but that North Star is so important. So, can you talk about how you work with your clients on that mission, vision, purpose, values, and why you think that it's so important for manifesting what you want in life?
I'll start with the end, which is to me, getting all this mission, vision, and values straight. To me, it's really a superpower because once you get these things aligned and really clear for everyone across the organization, it takes ambiguity out of what it is you do from day to day, right? Every day we're filled with all these different things. I've got 100 things on my schedule. And what do I do? And it gives you that, as you said, North Star to recenter on. I feel very frazzled right now. What's important now? What do I go back and focus on today? And so what I really work with organizations on is what are these things to you? How do you communicate them across the organization? Is your mission and vision what you want them to be? And if they're not, let's refine them and make sure that they are current and relevant. And the best way to refine them is to get as many people involved as you can. So I'll actually run workshops for dozens of key employees, if not all the employees of an organization, to get their thumbprints on it because we have buy-in for something much more if we actually had impact or had a voice in it. And so really figuring out what do you do? Why do you do it? And where do you really see this ideal future for yourselves? And at the end of the day, then putting it on the website, communicating it, putting it in your daily vernacular, you've got to create new habits and lessons and messaging around this. Just because you put it on your website doesn't mean it matters or that people are paying attention. And one of my favorite stories, the company I'm working with now, one of the employees said to me, I've never worked at a place where I see the mission and values lived out loud. And that really just warmed my heart after doing all this work with them over the last year.
I love that. At Stone Age, our mission and values are everywhere. Own it. It's the own it mindset, basically. And part of the own it mindset is our mission, which is to ensure that our customers go home safely to their families every night by helping them get their jobs done safely, on time, on budget, and inspire them to say, why would I choose anybody but Stone Age? And so clear. Every day in my work, am I inspiring our customers to say, why would I choose anyone but Stone Age? And that is such an easy thing to be able to hook into. That's our mission. Home safely at night, making their jobs easier, inspiring them to choose us. And no matter where you are in the company, anybody can say, it's the work that I'm doing helping us achieve that mission. And so I think it's such a powerful way when you simplify it down and you make it that something that's very real. And our customers love it too. And I mean, sometimes they'll say, oh man, you guys really screwed up on this one. I'm not sure if I'm going to say, why would I choose anybody but Tony? To tease us a little bit, but we like it because they know that's what we're trying to do and they actively feel it. And when we fall short, they have a way to hold us accountable to it. So I am a huge believer in very clear vision, mission, and values, that kind of purpose statement, because it helps people focus. And that focus is so important. If people don't understand where you're going, how do they know the steps that they need to take to get there and to focus their work?
I love that. Clarity not only helps you create this sort of super energized organization where everybody's aligned, but it helps you decide what to say no to.
Right?
When you bump into an
Exactly.
organization who's a potential client for you, and you look around and say, wow, our values and mission are totally misaligned here. It makes it a lot easier to say no to them. I know you have an amazing story you shared with me about your book about an organization that you actually fired as a client because there was
Hmm.
such misalignment, which led to some pretty unfortunate outcome. In the short term, long term, of course, it worked out very well for you. And the other piece to that puzzle is it tells you what to say no to, and it also helps you decide what to pursue more aggressively in
Yeah.
terms of clients and finding those win-wins. So I really
Yeah.
big fan.
We have a great strategic planning process, but I really want us to focus and hone in. And as I was reflecting on going through the strategic planning process this year, where as always, we take on too much. And every year we say we're not going to do that. We're such an ambitious company and we're trying to do big things that it's hard to say no. But what I realized I failed to do was to use our vision, which is to have working industrial cleaning robotics in every major heavy industrial manufacturing facility in the world by 2040. That's a big, huge goal. What I failed to do is really work backwards from that and saying, okay, if we're going to do that in 2040, what does 2035 look like? What does 2030 look like? What does 2025 look like? And in this time where you have limited resources and we're an employee-owned company, we don't get outside capital. We fund everything ourselves. How do we really focus those resources to make it happen and then say no to everything else? And so I'm getting ready to lead a planning session to really hone that in, pare some of those things away, and use that vision to absolutely drive our strategy and to say no to some of these other things. Not that they're not important and not that they might not help the company, but is it going to move the needle to get us to that vision? And that takes a lot of discipline and guts to do. We're making a bet that robotics and technology is going to be the way of the future around the world. And that means we have to say no to things. And that's a really tough thing to do, but we've got to hone in on it. It guides you and it tells you what to say no to. I'm literally going to be leading us through that exact exercise here soon.
And I think another part to that story is when you make that change and you give up some of the core things that you've done for so long that got you to today, how do you make that transition, which is an
Yeah.
easy one? How are you thinking about that, if I could ask?
So the way that I'm looking at it is with ambidextrous thinking. It doesn't mean that the core is going to go away, but how we focus on the core is about efficiency and cost reduction. And we're going to be very strategic on product development, but it is a whole different mindset. Instead of innovation, it's really about efficiency, reducing cost. So we protect the core that way. And then innovate is that you have to look at all of these new different business models and not fall into the trap of trying to force the new business into the old way of doing things, whether that's go to market strategies, margin, expectation, how the team is structured. So that's how I'm looking at it in these two different functions is exploit the core, get costs down, be really efficient with that. So that way we have money to invest into the new ideas, new ways of thinking, being willing to set up different teams and different team structures and different go-to-market strategies to be able to do that. So really what I'm doing is separating the two businesses and what do we do to maintain margins and maintain market share here while we are investing in what we think the future is going to be like.
That is awesome. I love this concept of ambidextrous thinking. And as I often find with you, Kerry, thinking 6 steps ahead along the way. But, one of the challenges, though, that I'm sure you've already seen is thinking about how do we communicate to people like, hey, this
Yeah.
thing is kind of not going to be as important to us, and celebrating how we got here, but also the fact that we need to move on. And I've seen organizations fumble that a couple of times. Not to say, I have
Yeah.
no doubt you will not do that, but I've seen organizations do it where they
Yeah.
bring out a new thing, start this new innovation, and then people say, well, wait a minute, what about this thing I've been doing for the
Yeah.
last 20 years? That can be a tricky one.
It is, and it takes just consistent communication, education, and not moving too fast. You can't move faster than your customers. I mean, there's lots of people who had great ideas, but they were just too early. And maybe you had those few early adopters, but they could just never get over that innovation curve where you had product acceptance. And so we have to really balance that and know that we can't move faster than what our customers are ready for. And we're making a pretty big transition. The interesting place that we're at now is that we are really the only ones that do what we do in the sense of true robotics, collecting data and being able to use that data to drive cleaning performance. And so what we've been talking about now as a team is people are going to be able to learn from us and be able to move a lot faster than what we did because we made all those mistakes and had all that learning when we were the first. So we can't assume that when a competitor goes to try to compete with us, that they're going to have that same learning curve. No, they're going to be able to reverse engineer a lot of what we did and learn from us. So it's kind of an interesting place that we're in with this type of new technology. And I think it would be easy for us to get complacent around, oh man, it took us 5, 6 years to develop this and to bring the market along with that communication. It's going to take someone else that long too. No, it's not. It absolutely isn't. So we look at it as how do we continue to widen the moat? Everything that we do needs to widen that moat, make it more difficult for those people who can compete with us faster because they can learn from us. How do we make that harder?
What a brilliant way to think about it and to really get everybody involved in the mission, the vision, and owning the
Hmm.
journey, as you said.
Hmm.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. I didn't mean to hijack the story, but
It's a
it's something
great
that's in my
story
mind. Right?
and no doubt a thoughtful answer to it. So I was curious. So thank you for indulging me.
Well, thank you for asking. So, based on what I said, what advice would you give to me as we're going through this next phase of our growth?
The one word that I was waiting for you to say, and I didn't quite hear it, was celebration. Because as you look at this change, you do want to celebrate, kind of like when
Yeah.
someone passes away, right? We don't call them funerals anymore.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we call them
Yeah.
celebrations of life. Let's celebrate what got us here, but also know that the world is changing and we need to evolve and continue to be this beautiful company. And so having that kind of moment of celebration of what got us here, I think is really important, and making that kind of a formal step.
I do agree, right? Being able to give gratitude to what got you to where you are, but being willing to let it go with that same sort of gratitude to say it's not going to get us to where we need to be in the future.
Somebody I was working with a while ago as a coaching client was working through a big transformation with his team. And one of the conclusions we landed on was really fun. He said, I realize now the first person I need to fire in this change is my old self. Because the thing that got me here over the last 20 years is not what's going to take me for the next 20 years. And so it was a really
Mm-hmm.
fun moment for that to happen, to say, oh my gosh, I'm the one who needs to change here. He sort of had the celebration of his own passing of his old self
Yeah.
to move on to this new mindset. It was fun.
I'm really glad you said that. My biggest fear is that I won't be able to take the company to the next level. There are people who are really good at running small companies. Like I've taken Stone Age from where it was, which was very small, into this global powerhouse in our industry, which is still a relatively small company in the whole scheme of things. But I have big visions for the company to head of $250 million and then $500 million and maybe eventually even $1 billion company. We're gonna have to do a lot of other things besides water blasting to make that happen. But I want to think that I can be the type of leader who can go through the same sort of transformation to be able to lead the company through those big transformations as well. But a lot of people fail to be able to do that. Some people are good at running $100 million companies, but they're really bad at running $1 billion company. So I need to be able to celebrate those transformations that I go through as a leader and be willing to say, okay, this isn't going to work for me anymore. What used to work for me then doesn't work for me now, and celebrate it and move forward. But that's a big thing. How do I stay relevant?
Well, thinking of you in particular, always
Mm.
staying present, always thinking about how to improve upon things, always engaging and empowering your team. I think you've got all the pieces in place.
Yeah, well, thanks. I appreciate it. I think that's a big thing that leaders face. Like, what do I do next? And do I have what it takes? And am I willing to make the changes that I need to make to do what's next?
Yeah, maybe you don't, but that new you does. And it's
Yeah.
finding that new you and
Yeah.
becoming that person, which is a constant journey.
That's for sure. So before we wrap up, I want to talk a little bit more about your book. So the book Optimizer, it's like your thought process around self-development, professional development through optimizing things. So can you tell us a little bit about what the optimizer mindset is?
Yeah, thanks. As a leader, we need to drive constant change, as
Yeah.
you just explained with this big transformation you're working on. And once you get to that next goal, there's going to be another one. And so it just keeps going. And so how do you get your team involved in that journey? And of course, you've brilliantly executed this ownership mindset and continue to do so. My thinking is about, how do I find the intersection of every team member, something that they really enjoy doing, finding a skill that they are good at or want to get better at, and that creates value for the organization and their careers. And when you can find that intersection, it's a really powerful place to be. So as an example, right now I'm working on a similar project with a company where we're doing this very thing with the team through a mentorship program. So instead of just doing a sort of traditional mentorship program where let's pass on knowledge, let's build our culture, what I like to do is a mentorship program is add on a very key piece, which is a project. So what we've done is, over the course of 10 sessions with some kind of start and end points to it, is the first half is really about, all right, what are these skills you like to do that you are good at? What are the things you enjoy doing? And let's assess that and see where you are. And then at the midway point, we found a project for everybody that I'm very much involved in helping that kind of brainstorming. And then the second half is about executing that project, which is about innovation. And it sits very much at the intersection of this optimizer mindset of something that I love to do, something that will create value for me in the organization, and something that is already a skill set of mine that I want or want to improve upon. And really building very much from there. And I think that's such an important part of the journey. And there's so many ways you can apply this. And certainly there's a bunch of stories in my book that do this, but it's really been fascinating to see it apply to this very current project I'm working on in the mentorship world. Because what happens then is, as people bring these new gifts, these new projects to the forefront, one, in a mentorship journey, it's guided. So it's got sort of a bonus buy-in because you've got a senior leader mentoring the journey. So it kind of overcomes the early hurdles of, hey, what's this crazy idea you have? Because it's got that extra support. But two, it's raising everybody up together, because if I can improve a process of what I'm doing and spend 60, 90 days doing it and then share it with you, you can go from 0 to 90 days much quicker, kind of like your competitors you were talking about in your early example. And so it's a way to really lift the tide for everybody. And this is very much what the optimizer mindset is about, getting all these different people working on something they enjoy, taking some time to carve out to work on this specific project that they love, and then sharing it across the organization to see where we can create efficiency there.
I love it. I'm super curious about this mentorship program. Is this something that you're really passionate about? Like, what do you think that this will turn into? Putting it through the optimizer mindset for yourself. Do you see that this is something that you could help people build in other organizations? I find it really fascinating what you're doing with this company.
Thanks. When I think of every kind of challenging inflection point in my own career, almost every single time I could tell you a story about the fact that I talked to a mentor and it just helped me navigate that inflection point that I was kind of stuck on. And so I'm a very passionate person in the mentorship world. I've been an informal mentor at my business school for the last 6 or 7 years. I've been a formal mentor about the same amount of time. So I have an assigned person each year. I was on an advisory board at my school for many years, and I helped build the mentorship program there. So I kind of took all these different sort of mentorship aspects and built this program out of that. And it's been really fun to see not only how it's helped evolve the culture of this organization, but people are so energized in these projects that they're doing. Most people don't go to work and say, hey, Kerry, here's an extra project to do. And you go, oh, great.
No.
More work. Awesome. And it actually completely flips that on its head, because they're doing something they're excited about, this value creation thing. And it's been so fun to see people evolve. And one of the women I'm working with right now, we had our brainstorming session a few weeks ago where we kind of expanded the vision of it in a big way. And at the end of the call, she goes, you just blew my mind. It was so funny. Every time I talk to her, she's just so energized about this project. And quite frankly, her project is, I hate to say this out loud, but value-wise, it has the possibility to create the greatest value of any of the projects we're working on, because in a kind of a simple, low-cost way, it'll allow them to double the production of the thing that they're doing. So it can have a real impact on things. And oftentimes these ideas are sort of sitting just at arm's reach. You just don't see them. It just takes a little bit of reframing and rethinking.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing. All right, we have to wrap things up. So let me ask you my signature question. The name of this podcast is Reflect Forward. What does Reflect Forward mean to you?
Yeah, I love that you end with that question. And for me, life is about the quality and value of the relationships that we have, both personally and professionally. We need to find time in our lives to build and nurture these relationships. And we have every day the opportunity to choose to do that. And the best way to do that is to be more present and really keeping a list of these people that are in your life. And this isn't always going out and doing these sort of big lavish things. It's about staying in touch. It's about sending a text message. It's about sending a birthday note or sending them a note about support in facing a challenge, or meeting for coffee. It's not the biggest thing in the world, like with the room that I gave to the guy at the conference. It's not always spending tons of time and money. It's just maintaining those relationships and staying in touch over time and seeing it as a transformational relationship rather than a transactional relationship. And I think that is so, so important. So as I reflect forward, I think about what are those relationships I have that are important to me and how can I continue to serve and help them?
I love that. Such a good answer. Thank you. All right. So how can people find you?
Thanks. Probably the easiest place is my website, John with an H, johnsaunders.com, Saunders, or on LinkedIn or Instagram, JCS_optimizer. That's where you can find me out there and see what I've been up to.
Awesome. I will include all those in the show notes as well. So thank you so much for coming on the show today, John. This was so much fun, as I knew it would be.
Such a pleasure to be here, Kerry. Great to see you.
Thank you. Hang tight, everybody. I'll be right back. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that podcast with John. Such a great guy. I'm so glad that he is a dear friend and in my life. And I'm glad that you got to know him a little bit better. Be sure to check out his Meet the Author events on LinkedIn and check out his website. With that, I will leave you to your day. I hope it's a fantastic one. Please, if you like this podcast, share it with the world. Write a review, share this with a friend, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or on my YouTube channel. It helps get these amazing interviews out to the world. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.